T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight, I'm joined by Shawn Perry of Sound Serpents for an episode that I am frankly super excited about. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the short-tailed python complex, so blood pythons, Borneo short-tailed pythons, Sumatran short-tailed pythons. This is a topic that I have yet to touch on at all in over 120 episodes here on the podcast, and Shawn has an incredible collection of these animals, as well as a wealth of knowledge. So I'm very, very excited to get into this. But before that, of course, as always, USARK. So USARK is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to live this lifestyle. Check out usark.org for everything you need to know about the organization. That website is where you can find alerts to new pieces of legislation introduced either at local levels or the national level, as well as any updates on any pieces of legislation. usark.org is also where you can become a member of the organization. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that are behind the cause, the better. And here we are. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in either live or listening or watching after the fact. If you are here on YouTube and you are not already, please subscribe to the channel. New podcasts come out every single day of the week here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network from some of the best hosts in the game, talking about a wide variety of reptile-related topics. So if you are a reptile podcast fan, you have most certainly come to the right place. But if you are more like me and are an audio podcast person, we are on all the major platforms, be that Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the Trap Talk Reptile Network. A follow and a 5-star review on any of those platforms would be most appreciated. And to kind of support everything I have going on, get early access to projects, behind the scenes looks at what I have going on over here, patreon.com/CushReptile is the place to go. Over there at the Patreon, 50% of all membership fee immediately becomes credit towards the purchase of an animal, and that credit never expires. And particularly with baby season right upon us right now, if there are any projects that I have going on that any of you are particularly interested in, this is the best way to cut the line, make sure you don't miss out on anything that I have going on over here. So really appreciate everybody who checks the Patreon out. Got a really cool community of people over there that is steadily growing. So huge shout out to all the Patreon members. So anyway, with all that said, going to cut to a quick word from some of the sponsors of the channel who make what we do here possible. And on the other side, we will be here with Shawn. So see you guys in just a minute.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Shout out to tonight's sponsor brought to you by ZooMed.
ZooMed is proud to be supporting the Trap Talk Reptile Network. At ZooMed, reptiles are our passion. For over 48 years, we've been creating premium foods, supplies, and habitats for reptiles and other exotic animals. We're a company made up of hobbyists that test our products on the hundreds of animals that we care for here every single day. Whether you're an established breeder or a first-time hobbyist picking up your first ball python, ZooMed has you covered with everything you need to keep your animals happy and healthy.
I'm excited to talk about this new product with ZooMed called the Slither Sense. It is a remote temperature and humidifying monitoring system, which we all know how important temperature and humidity is to your reptile. And for you to have remote access to your temperature and your humidity in your reptile room could really, really be a game changer for the longevity of you keeping reptiles. So guys, make sure you check out that product. Find the link in the description below. Click on it right now. Give me your feedback in the comments below. Let me know how you're liking a brand new ZooMed product. Shout out to tonight's sponsor, Workshop Reptilium. Josh Hansen is doing things different over in his facility. He has one of the most diverse, beautiful reptile collections currently in the reptile hobby today, but he is doing things differently when it comes to enclosures, thinking outside the box, giving these reptiles bigger enclosures. I feel like it's something this hobby needs. So a lot of exciting stuff to come from Workshop Reptilium. I'm going to be flying up to his place to give you guys a deeper look into his facility. And I'm also excited to have an episode with Josh so he can explain himself where his goals are headed when it comes to keeping. Thank you so much, Josh Hansen over at Workshop Reptilium. Make sure you head over to Instagram. Make sure you head over to Facebook. Also, make sure you subscribe to him on YouTube. You can find all the links in the description below. Again, thank you so much, Josh, over at Workshop Reptilium. Shout out to tonight's sponsor, and that's the one and only Morph Market and Morph Market shipping. One of the biggest exciting things about the reptile hobby over the past couple years is Morph Market shipping taking everything to the next level. Anything as far as reptile purchasing or selling needs can all be done on Morph Market's website. So I highly suggest you go check it out, especially if you're in the market of purchasing your first, second, or third, or fourth reptile. You can find a bunch of legitimate breeders on Morph Market's platforms. They stand very tall on representing the best breeders we have in the hobby. So don't look anywhere else when it comes to looking for your new reptile. Not to mention, if you're looking for aquatics or your next plant, Morph Market's a spot for you as well. Make sure you head over to morphmarket.com. And the best thing about Morph Market's platform, you could ship directly from their website with Morph Market shipping. Morph Market shipping has saved this hobby millions of dollars as a whole. I myself saved thousands with Morph Market shipping last year due to their insanely cheap rates. So definitely go take advantage of these rates on top of the amazing customer service that comes along with Morph Market shipping. Shout out to Darian and Zach, and shout out to the entire Morph Market team. So proud to be a part of this team. Thank you so much for Morph Market shipping and Morph Market, and so excited to announce new Morph Market features that are going to be hitting the reptile hobby real soon, like live sales on Morph Market. Thank you so much, Morph Market and Morph Market shipping.
All right, Shawn, what's going on, man?
What's up? How's it going?
Oh, not bad. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to get to talk to you. I'm maybe second most to me is this guy right here. He was commenting before we were even talking about a scrub python versus short tail debate.
I think we can both assume there's no debate, right? Short tails are the best.
Yeah, for sure. I think you could say right away, maybe not two more opposite pythons within the family of pythons.
For sure.
Probably, yeah. I mean,
but all from like this amazing area. Like,
yeah.
It's,
I mean, maybe, look, maybe Antaresia and like retics, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah, no, it's they're super cool snakes. I've only ever personally worked with a blood python. She was massive. I mean, legitimately a 7.5 foot blood python.
It's a rare sight.
Yeah, and I have a picture of the snake like lined up in front of a 6 foot PVC, and like her tail's wrapping around the side. So like it's not some exaggerated measurement. That snake was legitimately giant.
And I've only seen a few of those in my time that are verifiable. Like I know Garrett Hartle had like back in the day, and I feel like that might have been an Animal Forest. Okay, yeah.
This is the animal. Yeah,
massive animal.
And she ended up at the Reptarium. Yeah, so Garrett went to Forest, and then years later went up to the bar checks at the Reptarium. So
yeah, I remember that animal.
Yeah, man. I don't remember what Garrett and Forrest used to say that animal was, but like you hear whatever, you hear a 6 foot or 7 foot blood python, you're like, okay. I mean, come on. I don't know if it's like, I have a 20 foot retic. It's like, sure you do.
It doesn't mean they don't exist, but probably not.
Right. So, like for the longest time working with that animal, I'm like, she's probably like maybe like 6 feet, like, but she's huge. Like she's a massive snake. And then that one day she was on the floor and I'm like, oh, dang. Okay. She's actually 1.5 feet long. Like I'm not one to exaggerate how big these snakes are, particularly because like with the scrub pythons, I want people to understand like what these animals actually are, and like, oh, they're going to get 12, 13 feet long. It's like, what I always say is like, okay, like a scrub python that's over 12 feet long, barring the Australian giants, it's like a 7 foot tall person. It's like, do they exist? Yeah. Do you know one? Probably not. I mean, so, if you're getting a scrub python expecting a 13 foot animal, it's like, you'd have to power feed that animal to get it. I guess probably similar story with the short tails, and
for sure.
I'd have to imagine similarly to scrub pythons, they probably don't do very well with power feeding.
It's definitely not advantageous to the species, but they're kind of weird because they are a species you can get pretty large.
Sure.
They just have such a slow metabolism where I don't really see where it's needed. But for sure, if you're feeding them, especially in those first few years, you can get a pretty large animal. I mean, they're capable of taking large meals, and it's possible, but you don't see a lot of animals reaching over that 6 foot mark. It's just not common.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, I feel like with these giant animals, there's also very much a genetic component as well. Sure. Like that animal is predisposed to reach some large size that, another animal power feeding it would have just made it grow wider and wider, and at some point would have kind of capped out as far as length potential. So,
and I think there's probably some elasticity there where, you could probably start with an animal that maybe has some smaller genetics, and with feeding it heavier, you could probably get to a larger size potential there.
Sure.
And I know I've heard people debate this, but I think if you were to do that over multiple generations, you could result in animals that have, a higher chance of becoming larger animals. But I think that in the same instance, that also disappears after a few generations. I think with the elasticity of specifically pythons, if you're continually getting large and producing clutches and you're taking animals that continually will get larger, you can kind of like grow on that. But I think it also goes right back down real quick. I think it's weird, right? I don't know if that's like necessarily how genetics work, but I think it does apply in some way.
Well, it's interesting. An interesting thought process to go down because, I guess, sure, could you select for most things? Probably to some extent, but then I feel like one of the most common symptoms of snake inbreeding is shrinking their physical size.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're kind of like, you're fighting it in either direction. You're kind of like, you're like tearing the wall down and you're building it up over here at the same time.
I think we've seen that in a lot of species too over the years.
Okay.
Like just like to what you said, like just when I think back to my early keeping days where I think about like regularly seeing, I mean, they're called BI now, but seeing boa constrictor, BCI, I remember back in the early 2000s, regularly seeing BCI over 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet, seeing BCC in that 8 to 10 foot range, like regularly, like very common.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays you don't see that at all.
Yeah. I feel like you can even look at like Burmese pythons, I feel like 10, 15 years ago, there were plenty that, legitimately over 15 feet long, educational people would have their big Burmese python that they bring out at the end of a show. And that, I mean, you'd see like 10 people hold that snake. Like, you can't do that with a 12-foot berm. You run out of berm at some point.
Yeah.
But I feel like same kind of concept. Like you don't see too many really giant. You don't see a lot of Burmese pythons in general anymore, for better or worse.
It's not like it used to be.
Yeah, which I think there's a debate to be had there whether that's for the best potentially. I mean, they're not gone to the hobby, but I remember back 2007, 8, 9, first getting into it. It was like ball python, Burmese python as like the most popular pet pythons. Like it's a big jump and like pretty bad.
There wasn't. You didn't. The in between stuff was a lot more obscure. You really didn't see much in between there. Not at that time frame,
Yeah, I mean, you heard about carpet pythons. That was around the time when like jungle jags were starting to become a thing, and these beautiful carpet pythons were catching people's eyes. I mean, like I remember, I think like the first time I saw a dwarf retic or a whatever was like on Bob Clark's website. And I'm like, is this like a morph? Or I was probably like 10 years old. Just like, what is a dwarf? Like, what the heck is this? Or what's Jampea? What does Jampea mean? We know now.
I remember seeing like retics and scrubs coming in at that time, and I didn't have any clue what they really were.
Yeah.
The retic market might, it was probably growing at that time, but it wasn't something, outside of like, say Jay at Prehistoric Pets and Bob Clark there. I mean, it wasn't the market that it is now That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it seemed hot just as an observer, considering some of the prices were so high on some of these individuals. But yeah, I mean, there just weren't either. Obviously, there were those two. You know, I like Nick and Sal Daddy Retics. I remember they were doing their thing back in the day. You know, they're obviously still killing it now. But like, yeah, there just weren't that many. But obviously, as we all know, with retics, they're a very high production species, especially when you get into the mainlands. So like one clutch of 50 whatever, and it's like, okay, this like entirely changed the landscape of this morph or whatever in one day, you know?
Well, and it was, you know, it was super skewed to the, you know, say someone in our age bracket that was involved in the hobby in any extent when you're looking online, you're still talking about a time where like this stuff's new, especially like online. So, you know, someone has a website or someone's posting constantly. It makes it seem like it's really prevalent. Like you're like, oh, retics are everywhere. Everyone's buying all these morphs. That wasn't the case. You know, it might have seemed like they were this hot ticket item, but how many people are actually buying these animals at that price point?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. You know, the retic mass production is always kind of like served like the international markets first, and then domestically kind of secondarily. You know, probably almost up until the point of the, well, I guess up until the point of the Lacey Act, where, you know, that kind of eliminated, I guess, you know, importation and just kind of limited movement to these animals. But then particularly once the dwarf, super dwarf craze kind of began, it's like, you know, then a ton of US keepers like, oh, wow, I can actually kind of do this now. Like, that's cool. Like, you know, I can get a super tiger sunfire purple albino and it's going to be 8 feet long. Like, okay, like what's this all about?
I hope so.
Hey man, that's a
different topic, right? Different.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't even know if I have the guts to touch on some of those topics on here. I mean, I've kind of over time here and there, I've like tiptoed around it or like kind of touched on the whole ocelot gene debate as of late. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ocelot gate.
Ocelot gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So anyway, but yeah, man. I guess, you know, kind of rambled a bit to start, which I love, but I want to, you know, bring it back into a little bit of your history. So, you know, kind of give us the origin story. Well, you know, as we talked before, you know, you've been doing this your whole life, but what was the initial obsession? Then kind of how did that evolve with you over time?
So, you know, there was like a thing where I'm like, oh, I can pinpoint this one instance. It was a, you know, super young man, say between like 7, 8, 9, maybe even a little younger. I had taken a family trip down to Florida and we went to an alligator farm. And at the end of that, and I couldn't tell you which one it was so long ago, but at the end, you had the option to take like, you know, a photo opportunity with an alligator or a snake, which happened to be a boa constrictor at that time.
Okay.
And I remember just like, for the people that have been into snakes for a while, like what we look at as what you kind of look at as like a normal Columbia now wasn't what you saw in the early 90s. Like these animals were large. They had a much more like golden color to them. They weren't more of these like brown gray washed animals. Like they were impressive looking animals back then with some size on them. And I just remember like seeing this animal and was like, why would I want to hold an alligator when I can hold this? Like, you know, the alligator had its mouth taped shut. Like,
sure.
As a young kid, like I was like, that doesn't seem as fun as like I can hold an adult snake, you know?
Yeah.
And that was really probably like that. That's like the instance where like that ball was rolling, was like, man, like I could have one of these. And my dad's best friend when I was a child, he owned a pet store. It primarily focused on like aquatics and birds.
Okay.
And he'd get odds and ends in, but even that, you know, it was kind of like this idea that like people were owning exotic animals, like more than a dog or a cat. And my dad was like heavy into fish. So whenever we'd travel all the time to go to different pet shops, you know, this is a different time. Pet shops are everywhere, you know, not just the not the big stores. There's mom and pop shops everywhere. So we'd always go look at fish, but I'd always gravitate, you know, going towards the reptile rooms and just seeing what was in there. And I didn't know any better. I mean, it was trash keeping, like, but I didn't know any better. That it looked cool. Like, I want to be part of it,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that from an early age. And where I grew up in Massachusetts and Rhode Island area, and there was a shop called Regal Reptiles. It was owned by this guy named Shawn Perry, and he imported like a pretty large number of animals and had a rather large facility, like 2 stories. If I had to guess, we're probably talking like 3,000 to 5,000 square foot facility.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the first place I was seeing like vision cages, neodacia cages, a lot of aquariums still, that was commonplace, but he was getting in scrubs, all types of different boa species, lots of monitor species at that time. It would be pretty commonplace to go to his shop, and there's a vision cage with 10 black monitors in it, black tree monitors.
Wow.
Different scrubs. I don't know if he really knew what the localities were back then.
Yeah.
But they were coming in, and lots of different boa species, frogs, bugs. I mean, back then it was African millipedes and emperor scorpions, which catch a kind of a pretty good price now. And we're talking about back then $10 animals.
Yeah.
Albino berms might have been $150. Berms were like $75. Like it was a different time, and having that exposure at like a super young age. I'd go to the shop all the time, spend my weekends, my summers, my school vacations, like always going to the shop, to the point where it's like, hey man, like if you're gonna be here all the time, like you gotta clean some cages or do something, like that's kind of was my experience. So
yeah,
here I am, like preteen, maybe a teenager. I'm at the shop where like all this shit, crazy stuff's just coming in constantly, and it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, man, that sure sounds like it. Especially like an import facility at such a formative stage. It's like,
yeah,
there's no other experience quite like that, because you get firsthand experience with just so much different stuff, such a crazy variety, where like the guessing game of, what am I interested in really gets narrowed down and compressed to an extreme degree.
And I thought that was everyone's experience. I didn't know enough to know that wasn't what everyone was seeing or doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you like reptiles and all this, you see all this, it's normal. And I didn't, I probably didn't appreciate it at that age because I didn't understand it. But like looking back, it's more than I can go into detail with, because like I could just keep rattling things off. But yeah, it was insane, dude. There was nothing like it.
Yeah, I could imagine. So at that point when you were, starting to go there more frequently, did you have, well, I guess for one, did you have a collection already going at home? And then 2, did you already have certain species or groups of species or whatever that were like, I'm really particularly interested in this or that?
I was always a snake, like snakes first and foremost, always. I kept a ton of insects. I kept, some lizard species, uromastics, leaf-tailed geckos. Those were pretty prevalent back then, especially at this place. At that age, though, even then, like I always knew I was into snakes, and I immediately was drawn to anything boa related, like instantly. Okay. I went through my phase of liking colubrids, keeping them. I had corn snakes, all that stuff. My first snake was a ball python, and then I went right to a spilotes, like right after that. So
really,
yeah,
nice.
And an adult too.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah, it was basically one of these things where I was always interested in it, and I would always look at it, and it came to the time where he was like, he was super cool, right? Like I would trade in animals. I'm a young kid, and it came to the point where he's like, if you can get it out of the cage by yourself, you can have it. And I said, okay, let's try it. And for me, luckily, it wasn't like a very cantankerous animal, fast, whatever, but once getting it home, it was a slightly different animal, but at the pet shop, not so bad.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure I would have had the guts to try my hand with an animal like that.
Young, dumb, and stupid, right? I didn't know better.
Yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious. So then I guess, when did the short tails come into the picture? Because obviously that really grasped you at a certain point, but it seemed like early on your interests were kind of all over the place.
Yeah, they were. Like I always said I was like they refer to like the Noah's Ark keeper.
Yeah.
Keep a little bit of this, a little bit of that. No real intention on breeding, like, ever at that point. Just having animals. I think, I had seen blood pythons pretty early on. Really early on. And they interested me, and I had got one, and I had a pretty bad experience with it. At that time, the understanding of how to keep them was like really, really poor. And I'm sure some people can like relate to this experience, not only with this species, but maybe with other stuff. It's like the first time I seen a blood python, it's in a cage with a basking lamp, probably hitting mid-90s. It's on the green astroturf, and this animal is just sitting in its water bowl trying to cool down.
Yeah.
And it's aggressive, like not, sure, we don't call snakes aggressive, but it's a pissed off animal. No matter how you slice it, it's not happy with its conditions. And that was one of my first experiences with him, and failed to thrive. It didn't do well in my care either. I didn't know how to take care of it, but it did stick with me. Like, I really just loved like this. They kind of have like this menacing look. They have like this really like leaf shaped head. They will tend to kind of like hide most of their body where the head's the only thing that's visible, especially when they're young. And I just always thought that was so cool, and they stuck with me for a long time. And then I think it was probably around, if I graduated in high school, like in 05, it might have been somewhere in that like 04 to 06 time frame. I started keeping some Sumatran short tails.
Okay.
And once that happened, they've been a staple in the collection since. They've never left, and I've only expanded on that, from that point. So it's 2026. I have 20 years of keeping short tails under my belt,
Yeah, that's quite a long time to really hone in on something. I bet over those years, your knowledge and understanding of these animals has evolved in crazy ways.
I'd like to think so. I think I do a great job at keeping them. I think I have a good knowledge base, and I've had some great mentors along the way. But yeah, you look back at like what, Tracy and Dave, and I think it was more something that maybe Tracy said was like the idea of snake keeping hours or snake keeping years, where it's, if you have one snake and you have it for a year, that's 365 days times 24 hours of keeping one animal.
Right.
If you have two animals, then that's just, the same thing compounded over and over and over. So when you look at something like that, I have millions of hours of keeping short tails, So it speaks for itself in some ways. Sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, man, that's awesome. I definitely want to get deep into the topic. I guess, just to start it off, I guess just go through just the distribution of the three different species. What's like kind of a general description of the three?
Yeah, sure. So blood pythons, Bronger's Mai. Primarily what we see in the hobby now, probably since around like mid 80s or so, those animals, when, if imported, they're coming directly from Sumatra. We would have Malaysian and maybe some Thailand localities back in the day, primarily Malaysia. But both Malaysia and Thailand stopped export in the mid 80s. So there's very few of those animals that are in the hobby today.
Okay.
They're primarily coming from Sumatra. And so within Sumatra, that's also where we see Python Curtis. Right. So you'll see the orange as the northern race and the black and chromes as the southern race. And kind of what divides Bronger's Mai and Curtis is there's a mountain range there called the Barisan Mountains. Okay. And they run north to south. So we'll see bloods on the east side of that island, where we'll see Curtis on the west side of that island. And then we have Borneo pythons that are endemic to Borneo, and that's the only place they're found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So considering that bloods have this kind of wider range, has there ever been discussion about potentially speciating them to any extent?
Yeah, so there has been. So we know, for a fact that we see blood pythons in Sumatra and Malaysia, Thailand. We see them on some of the neighboring islands like Bangkok, which is a locality that, we see in the hobby. And we've also found only one animal on the Cambodia-Thailand line, Cambodian-Thailand line. And then there is, I think this is maybe a shine paper. I could be wrong. But there is another animal, and it has been differentiated as another species, and that's Python jackito. Only one animal has ever been found. It's the holotype for the description. And that was found in Myanmar or Burma.
Really?
But only one has ever been found. But initially, that paper was written as kind of trying to find the extent of Brongersmai.
Okay.
But it was determined that may be another species.
Were there any distinguishing physical features where you're like, okay, this looks like a significantly different animal? Because I almost wonder if somebody like had one there, somehow got away, and a scientist found it. Considering there's never been one found again.
So from my own observations, and I know the Barkers wrote about it. I believe there's a different scale count. Do they look that different? Not really. I mean, they look kind of similar to like a yellow Brongersmai.
Okay.
I think more of the issue we find with knowing that if there's other animals there is that area is like not really explored heavily. They've been in a civil war for a long time.
Sure.
Genocide. It's politically unstable.
Sure.
So I mean, there could be a bunch of them there.
Fair enough.
We're not seeing them, and they're not being looked for. So I couldn't say, hey, they're not there, but it's a possibility for sure.
Fair enough.
And that animal was found, something, I want to say about like 300, 400 miles. I know that sounds like a huge gap. I just don't remember the number. From the closest Thailand locality. So it's pretty far into their range.
Significant.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Interesting. I know we kind of talked previously about natural history and how there's just not a ton of research done on these guys in the wild. And, why do you really think that is, considering they've been such a visible snake within herpetoculture for such a long time?
So there's a decent amount of papers written, right? Like maybe if you go on Google Scholar today, maybe you'll find, if you type in Brongersmai, you find 6 papers. You type in Curtis, maybe you find another 2. I think as far as what we know about natural history with the species, the problem is that we have found with palm plantations taking over Sumatra that it's actually like super beneficial for the species. They tend to like really gravitate towards these areas, and I think that's where we kind of see the expanse in like modern day herpetoculture is because of these palm plantations. But even to this day, like we find there's really minimal accounts of finding like say baby animals or anything like that. And what is presented in the hobby as kind of natural history is these animals live on palm plantations. They're primarily rodent feeders, and this really, it just works for the species as a whole. They're able to lie in wait in these palm ferns, that have been cut down. There's a ton of rodents there. So we have this idea of what they do and where they're found, but not outside of that. Like we don't, there's a YouTube channel where a guy goes out and digs them up, finds them. Sure. But we don't know a lot about like their real natural history. All these animals are coming from palm plantations. They're taking gravid females in. We just don't know a lot,
Yeah. I mean, is there much in terms of like assumptions as far as their biological niche, considering just like their physiology is conducive to a certain type of lifestyle,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know they're not arboreal, right? Some people will go as far as saying they're fossorial animals, which sure, but by definition, fossorial means underground. That's not just animals hiding under a leaf litter. I mean, that's not what that is.
That's burrowing, and that's
yeah. And if you do watch this YouTube channel, I wish I could remember his name. He is digging them out of like kind of like mud banks and stuff like that. But I mean, how much? I'm not there. I don't know how much I can like trust if these are planted. I mean, I don't know. So
Sure.
But we do know that they are a species that will lie in wait. And you can see that even within your captive collection. You know, I have animals where I check my animals every single day, right? And I have animals that I can tell for sure they haven't moved in a week. You know, they maybe they'll go get water, but like they're not an active species like by any means. They're an ambush predator.
Yeah.
They're heavy bodied. It's believed that some of that heavy body comes from is, you know, their ability to strike like really hard and fast. It's kind of almost acts as an anchor for them.
Sure.
You know, which sounds really plausible. And there's been papers written on kind of like the geometry of snake strikes where they can be dependent on whether they have a surface that they can anchor against or push up against. And when that paper was written about short tails, their strike geometry doesn't really change based off what's around them. If they have an object that they can push up against, if they're against a wall, that strike speed, nothing changes. And I think that probably has something to do with their body type, where they can, you know, anchor down with that back end, and you know, that's that.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. You know, they got that. Yeah, their center of gravity for that strike compared to almost any other snake in the entire world. I mean, maybe the Bitis genus is the only thing comparable.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone knows about those animals and what they're capable of.
And that's a common comparison.
Yeah.
A lot of people say short tails are really close to like gaboon structure, and when, you know, down to the spine ridge, the weight, the build of the body, it's a pretty common comparison.
Yeah, except just infinitely less dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then when it comes to captivity, obviously there's not probably a whole lot of takeaways from any sort of wild observations as far as husbandry, breeding, anything like that goes. It's kind of, has it all just kind of been figured out, trial and error over the years?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that would really speak to how we used to keep them. People kept them really hot, and we knew that they came from these humid environments. So people would actually tend to keep them, I don't want to say too wet, but the problem really was they're creating these environments that they believe are humid, but with really poor ventilation.
Yeah.
So you would see things like respiratory infections, and then we're keeping them too hot as well, which is, you know, you're just going to have a nasty snake at that point. And I think a lot of how we keep them now isn't really about their natural history. It's about what we found has worked for them in captivity. So yeah, they don't need to be hot. Ventilation is probably, I would say, more important than humidity, because you don't have to keep them super humid. You can keep them in that 60% range, you know, maybe even a little less. Of course, when they're about to shed, you want to bump that up a little bit, but they're not a species you need to keep at these like extremities by any means.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I feel like you always see pictures and videos of people's collections of their blood soaking, and especially when they're young and stuff like that. Are they just a more aquatic animal, or is that the result of them being too hot and them doing whatever they can to escape that? Like, if you keep them at a proper temperature, do you see them soaking a lot?
So my animals like hardly ever soak. Like even as babies, like it's pretty rare in my collection, right? With my observations. But what I will say is you can keep these animals wet for a prolonged period, and you don't come across, you know, blistering and things like that, belly rot. Like, you don't see that. I think this is a species that probably, you know, if we're talking about natural history, probably does live in very damp environments, because you don't see the normal problems you'll see with other snakes kept that way. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for, at least in my experience, scrub pythons are the prime example. They have super sensitive skin. You know, if you have a scrub on paper and, you know, let's say it's an ambient whatever setup, you know, the snake tips its water, you don't catch it for a few days, you got a good chance that that snake already has blisters.
Yeah.
I'd have to imagine probably not quite the case with blood.
I keep my babies on water.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some paper towel or paper in there,
right.
But when I have a clutch, they're sitting on, you know, they're not swimming, but they're sitting on water until I sex them, and then I separate my males and females, and they're back on that. And I don't put them on something dry until I'm about to feed. So they're wet, when I have babies.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one thing I've heard over the years is just how different it is with the babies relative to other pythons. They take a long time to shed, don't they?
Oh yeah, I have animals that are going on over 2 months now. I don't think they've hit the 3-month mark, but yeah, they haven't shed, and no signs like that they're going into shed yet. And they've been fed weekly since after 2 weeks. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So they've had at that point they've had 6, 7, 8 meals, and no signs of shedding, and they're gaining size.
Yeah. Here's a good question right on topic. When do you attempt to feed babies for the first time?
I don't try at all before 2 weeks.
Okay.
That could be 2 weeks going on the 3rd week or so, but nothing before 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
It's not even a thought in my mind. Like, I'm not even considering it.
Are they just so packed full of yolk when they hatch? It's just like, what's the point, or what's the thought process as to waiting?
Yeah, they come out with just a really good body condition.
Yeah.
So when I've had animals that have failed to thrive, let's say something's taken 3-4 months to take a meal, they haven't even lost weight yet. They haven't even started to lose weight at that point.
Yeah.
Where a lot of other species, you're probably a little concerned, and it's not to say that I'm not concerned, but if we're talking just body condition, they haven't grown, but they look perfectly fine still. They're not dropping in weight. They don't look emaciated in any way.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the point at which that will potentially start to happen if an animal goes months and months without taking food?
I've seen it so rarely in my own collection, but man, even approaching if they have a good build coming out, if they're not their run, I had an animal go 6 months with not taking food.
Yeah.
And yeah, really no change in body condition. I started, which is something I don't tend to do, but I did start force feeding that animal at that point, or assist feeding. It was a little forceful at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then, once you're there, there's no turning back. Once you start doing that, that metabolism has kicked in.
Right.
But yeah, even at that point, maybe, that 5-month range, the body condition didn't change on that animal at all.
Okay.
Not until I introduced food, and then I'm like, oh, this thing needs to eat constantly at that point.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's interesting. There's definitely a couple parallels with the scrubs, despite them being so physically different. I've had some scrubs take forever to shed.
Mm-hmm.
I had one animal take over 6 months to have its first shed.
Okay. Yeah.
And what I have found over the last couple of years is clutches that I've kept together in the incubator for longer after they hatch shed faster.
Okay.
But I've had some years where my average first shed was 3 months.
Yeah.
I think I had one female, or I still have her, who took 12 meals before her first shed.
Yeah, that's right on track with blood pythons. I mean, normally, a lot of people say 2 to 3 months, and if you're feeding weekly at that point, yeah, you're in 12 meals.
Yeah, I mean, she ate. I mean, she probably wasn't even a week old yet, and she ate her first meal and never skipped one. And I'm just like, I wanted her to shed, but I'm like, I kind of want to hit double digits because that's kind of just to say that happened. Yeah, she ate 10 times before she shed. Okay, so, but pre-first shed, you'll put them in a normal setup where they're not necessarily kind of in a more watery.
Yeah, once I decide that I'm gonna feed them, I'm putting them in kind of a regular setup: water bowl,
Gotcha.
Paper towel, or craft paper, something like that. And if I have anything that hasn't eaten a meal, so if I have animals that establish right off the bat, first, second meal, third meal, good, and I have an animal that's not, then I'll start introducing things I'll introduce sphagnum moss, just kind of make them feel more secure. And a lot of times that will kick them into eating too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So with baby bloods and short tails, typically how does feeding go with them? I'd have to imagine, considering we're working generations down the line in some instances, that it's got to be easier than some things.
Yeah. So, and in my experience, I would say 75% of animals eat their first meal.
Okay.
And I'm generally starting with live as well. Yeah. But once they take 2 to 3 meals live, I go to frozen thawed. And I would say it's probably the same percentage that will switch over for me, right?
Wow.
I'm sure everyone's experience is different, but
yeah,
with what I've done, that's kind of the numbers and where it's worked for me. So.
Okay. I mean, that's super nice.
Yeah. And I think, I try to pay attention to what everyone has going on. And I know plenty of people that have established the animals off frozen thawed right away. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They're pretty reliable eaters. I mean, I bred some yellows last year, yellows Bronx Mai, and they're only F2s. And those animals ate 2 live meals, their third meal. Switched to frozen thawed. I had an animal that didn't eat live. And then when I switched to frozen thawed, it took its first meal. And then I had one other animal from there that ate its first 2 meals frozen thawed, ate a live meal, skipped for 2 weeks, and then I just did like a pre-kill, and it got right back on track. So, yeah, I mean they're pretty reliable either, as long as the environment's good,
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah,
not bad.
But then I've seen, with my buddy Nick that that passed away. Sometimes certain clutches will just be like really stubborn feeders. Like I was there last year, about a year ago from this week, and. There was clutches of animals that had to be assist fed. They just, sure. It happens. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that's animal breeding. Yeah. Nick's work was just phenomenal. I always, every time he posted, I was just so mesmerized. I feel like he was a shining example of what herpetoculture done at like the best level looks like to me.
I agree.
I never was fortunate enough to meet him or talk to him, but I was a fan for years, and he did some fantastic work and super inspirational.
Great guy, and he cared a great deal about the hobby in general.
Mm-hmm.
And behind the scenes, Nick wasn't like one of these people that he didn't put himself out there a lot, right?
Sure.
But behind the scenes, besides just our friendship and him mentoring me, he was doing something similar with a lot of people, like helping guide their collections and mentor them and answer questions. Like he was one of the ones. He really cared about this hobby. He cared about the species. He cared about presenting himself in a certain way and presenting his animals in a certain way. And he lived what he spoke with his animals. Like he was what he said he was.
Yeah.
And he was what people said he was, You don't ever hear anybody talk bad about the guy. Like
never. Yeah.
No, he was solid.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, man. We the hobby needs more people like him. And I think we're very fortunate. There are plenty out there. So definitely carrying on the legacy and that kind of mindset, I think, is extraordinarily important for the hobby. Kind of more now than ever. So
I think, and it's always been something that I've always kind of stood by, is you have to put the hobby first, right? Because without that and without the support, we don't get to do what we love.
Yeah.
It's you have to build people up. You have to do things in an ethical and responsible way, and you should be concerned with the issues in the hobby. It doesn't mean you should, bite into every piece of drama or you have to pay attention to everything, but
sure.
You should be a student. There's the student of the serpent, right? But you should be a student of the hobby. Like you should know what came before you, the people that came before you, dig into literature, dig into old papers. Like you have a responsibility. And I really believe that you have a responsibility to the hobby. If this is something you want to do at any level, 1 or 2 animals, sure, maybe you don't have that responsibility, but you want to keep a collection, you want to breed ethically and sell animals to people, and that's part of your plan. You should study the hobby a little bit, and care about it.
Yeah, I really I couldn't agree more. I think especially with the social media era, that's becoming a message that is being lost almost entirely. There's like, I feel like there's two eras of herpetoculture. I mean, obviously, but like pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Yo, for sure.
Like that's like the hard line in the sand of like the rejection of the old school, so to speak, with a lot
It's the biggest change we've seen.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, from the early 1900s up until 2020, and now we're living in the second era of herpetoculture. There were obviously changes in the meantime. The snake rack, probably first and foremost. But as far as the mindset goes, I feel like up until that point, getting into the hobby and in like a deeper way, like you said, not a couple of animals, having some pets, but like, true like interest and involvement in herpetoculture, it was just so natural to learn about the history. And even for people who didn't want to necessarily dive deep into like learning about science or whatnot, but like, who are some of the historical figures that we should know about? How did some of these species become to be in the hobby? The good, the bad, and the ugly of the history of herpetoculture was just kind of standard.
Yeah.
And now not so much. Like I bet, I guess maybe before a few days ago or a week ago, but like go to any reptile show and, survey everybody who walks through that door and ask them, have you read The Lizard King?
Yeah.
How many yeses do you think you're going to get in a sample size of 1,000 at a reptile show?
Very few. Yeah.
I don't even know if I would say 50.
I think that's fair.
10. I mean, that like, to me, that book should be like your starter manual. Like, you want to be in herpetoculture, read this first, because this is
Lizard King, Stolen World, like those are great starting points to kind of understand. Regardless of the light they may paint these things in,
it's the truth.
They're based in factuality, right? Like it's what happened.
Yeah.
You can't, it's not disputable.
No.
And you should educate yourself on that. Like there's so many great pieces of literature that have been written. And even if those things have changed over time, I find myself even to this day, because I'm an avid book collector.
We're going to talk about that later.
Cool. I find myself
multiple questions about that earlier on too.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Like, dude, I go back to my little TFH books, dude, just to kind of give, this little 50-page book a read, because there's something you might have missed. And I think what people generally miss in the hobby, we have so many options today, right? But if you don't have the options, there's still a way to keep responsibly and to make sure these animals are thriving and healthy. And it doesn't take a lot, right? Like it doesn't take a lot. So when everything else has failed, it's really important to know how people originally have kept these animals with minimal.
Yeah. Because
it will guide you and it'll help you, and it'll help you understand the reasons of why and how they were successful, right? Because there's a few elements, and they're all very basic elements. But if you understand that you can create those elements with like minimal things, you have a really good grasp. And people miss that all the time. They're like, oh, that's outdated information. It's like, well, no, it's important information. It's a great piece of reference, and it's a great thing to compare and contrast with.
Yeah. Well, and with anything in life, you really need to lay a good foundation before you can start to build up on top of that. And look, I mean, there's the absolute classic example of somebody on Facebook posts their big bioactive whatever for whatever, and does it look visually appealing to a layperson? Probably, but it's entirely wrong for whatever the animal they are intending that for. I feel like there's a lot to be said for learn how to keep that animal with paper towel and a water bowl, and then keep, once you can prioritize the animal, once you get the basics, go to the next step. Don't jump in at level 10 and have no idea what you're doing, kill the animal in the process. Like, and the thing is, that's kind of ironic, is the reason why people will do that is because of, their ethical concerns or whatever it may be. Well, if it ends with a dead animal, you've just thrown away your entire argument.
Where were your ethics?
Like, wait a second.
Yeah. Well, you have to treat these animals, right? It's like, so if you start at something that advanced, right, and it fails, but you haven't learned the basics, you have no point of reference to troubleshoot. So it crashes, and it crashes quickly because you can't fix it.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of look at these animals almost like, so in science, right? It's like if you were to do a scientific test, you wouldn't start with 1 million variables. You would start with very few variables and test them. And when things are stable, well, now you can add another variable and see where that gets you. Because you always have a point to go back because you haven't added 1 million things to it. Yeah. But if you just start the test with 1,000 variables, how do you know what went wrong? Like there's nothing to pinpoint.
Yeah, 100%.
And you see it all the time, and it's unfortunate because a lot of times if you get into conversations with these people, they will always go back to like ethics of keeping, and to what you said. Well, is it ethical if that animal just crashes and burns, like, right, and you can't do anything to fix it? It's really not, you know.
Well, and the thing is, this is not a binary for people of like, well, either, you know, start at a higher level and not do well, or start at like the very basic. The third variable there is learning.
Mm-hmm.
And the knowledge of the past is where to start. You know,
100%.
If you educate yourself on the history of the hobby, you will witness the trial and error of the better part of a century. Yep. That brought us to where we are today. I mean, you know, herpetoculture kind of really took off, what do you want to say, probably mid-70s on, as far as like the real kind of like one.
I'd say that's like the next big swing, right?
Yeah, like when the exponential growth really kind of started in the corner. But like my grandmother was keeping snakes with her mom in New York City in the 40s. You know, like people were keeping snakes a long time ago, or reptiles a long time ago.
Yeah, people have been doing this for a long time. You know.
Yeah. So then, you know, learning like, all right, this is why we evolved from aquariums to wood cages, but then this is where all the issues came with wood cages. And then we moved on to melamine, but that was super heavy, blah, blah, blah. And then how do we get to PVC? And, you know, how did racks become a thing? Why did solid color tubs become a thing as opposed to opaque tubs? You know, this is all like, maybe some of this information, you know, parts of it might not be super easy to find, but like you have the whole internet at your disposal. You know, if you're this impatient,
like, you can find an answer.
If you're so impatient to find your answer, then are you really the kind of person who should be owning animals? Like,
probably not.
Yeah, probably not. And the thing is, the information gathering exploratory process is like one of the most fun parts about this. You know,
it should be. Like, it absolutely should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why I do this every single week. Like, I always learn something new. It's fascinating. And
dude, when I'm just like randomly like online and I find an old price list, or I find like,
those are so cool.
Yeah, like I see that, or I see like an old book, or you know, I see a post that comes back and it's 10 years old, and I read it, and they get me so stoked, dude. Like I screenshot them, I catalog it, I save it. And that's 20 years in. I'm 20 plus years in to keeping animals. And like, I still just see a tidbit of information, and like, I'm so excited to have found it. Like it's like the first day all over again. Like, I'm that excited to find that piece of information. Yeah. You know, even if it's not relevant to my style of keeping now, but if it's something I didn't know, or it's like a tidbit of information when this one thing started, or how we got there, like that's super exciting to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no question about it. Yeah, and you know, I feel like if you've ever gotten to the point, and we probably all have, I've definitely been there, of like where something like that doesn't excite you anymore, it's time to like take a little audit of what you're doing, and like, all right, where have you become overextended? You know, do you need to shrink your collection? What do you need? Because getting to that point where the curiosity dies down, man, I don't know if that's worth anything.
And unfortunately, we all get there at some point, right?
Sure, it's inevitable.
If you're keeping a large collection of animals, and it's constant work. So like, you're going to feel that. Like there's going to be some burnout, and there's going to be times when you lose a little bit of interest, but that's your responsibility to figure out why and dial it back. Because if you're losing that excitement to go into your room, that excitement to open a tub, interact with your animal, learn something new, you might have gone too far, right? You've lost the basics of it.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to fall into that because, especially up until I think it's probably if we're looking at pre-post COVID era, more of a pre-COVID kind of mindset. But the North Star was always big collection, big facility, tons of racks, rows and rows, tons of animals. So I think that mindset just kind of became super prevalent. And I mean, shoot, I had that. I'm
Oh yeah, I'm guilty.
And without really much like introspection along the way of like, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then that does reach that inflection point of like, eventually you have too many animals and now you're like, this becomes work. And, it happens to everybody, but I think it's happened to enough of us. We're like, could probably try to like save some people from going down that path too high and heavy too quickly.
It's hard to tell anybody, right? Like I see it all the time. If I'm in groups or people I'm friends with, they're like, I just bought this. Oh, I want this species. And it's like, I get it. Like, I trust me. Like, I get it 100%. Like, I get it. But you have to slow down sometimes. The only way to speed up is to slow down, right? If you want to make these big leaps, slow down a little bit. It's the only way it really works. And I think it's fair to say, and it's, not speaking poorly on him in any way, but I think there was a definite period in this hobby when it's like, where it's the bar check effect, right? Yeah. For a lot of us, specifically in our age group too, right? It's we're new online. There's this new thing, YouTube, and there's this guy that has this facility with thousands of snakes. And if you like snakes, you love this shit, right? Like you see it and you're like, what the fuck? Like, sorry for swearing, but like that's what you said.
You know what channel you're on?
But like, that's what you said. You said, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like it was nuts. And it seemed, regardless of how large this facility was, there's a part in your brain, especially if you're younger and you're getting into this hobby, where you're like, oh, I could do that. This
for sure.
Like, I could do this. Yeah. Like I could. This seems reasonable. It's not. Like it's not reasonable. If you've owned a large collection, you know it's not really that reasonable.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, you have no clue.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like the big bang moment for me in my life was a bar check video where he's like talking like, well, I breed snakes for a living. I'm like, wait, you what? Yeah. I was like 8 years old in like the living room. I'm like, I figured out life.
I can fill this with racks. Yeah.
Like, well, I might need more space than this, but no, I mean, it's like, I mean, that brought so many people into this, but then, and like he told some stories like this publicly, so I'd feel comfortable saying, but like hearing Brian just like in a small group talking about some of the struggles of those days, it's like,
it wasn't all good.
I'd rather work at McDonald's than have to do some of this stuff. And it wasn't like fondly, it was like, it was tough, it was like, this is what it was. And it was really difficult. So, but like the mass production era of the hobby was so necessary for better or worse, because it allowed the growth to happen the way it did. It allowed big box stores to carry reptiles in large quantities. And like, of these facilities that were doing it at that level, I mean, there's only, of the four main ones, two of them are remaining.
Yeah.
So two of them are not, Gourmet Rota and BHB Reptiles aren't operational. I don't Gourmet Rota, not at all. BHB, definitely not the way it used to be.
Not what it used to be. But we wouldn't be where we are if we didn't have a Bell Industries, like.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is what it is.
The Max, that it's like, and that's the thing, like, survey the Lizard King, survey, do you know the not even who's Mark Bell, do you know Reptile Industries?
Yeah. Yep.
probably second to like Rodent Pro and Timberline, the most important business in the history of our hobby.
Yep.
People probably know those two.
Yeah.
People probably don't know Reptile Industries anymore, which is insane. Absolutely insane to think about.
You got to educate yourself. You have to learn these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah. And luckily, for maybe, guys like me and you, and I have a few years on you. We were immersed in it. So it was a little bit of second nature.
Sure.
But for most people, it's not, and it really skews the way you view things if you don't educate yourself on the ways of the past.
Yeah.
It's easy to say like all these people are trash and we didn't need them. It's like, well, you probably wouldn't be keeping on any level if it wasn't for these people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
there's a part of it, right?
Well, what had to come before the person who, for their first reptile, gets a 4x2x4 PVC with Exoterra lights and, radiant heat panels and herp stats and all this stuff. Like, what had to happen? I mean, with all the bioactive substrates and all the perfect ratios and the isopods, and what had to happen for you to be able to do that?
To get there.
It's like, that wasn't possible 10 years ago. Nonetheless, 20 years ago, even, like, how recent of a development that is in herpetoculture is so taken for granted by some of the newer keepers. And it's not like you shouldn't indulge in that, but then to sit on your high horse because that's how you started.
Yeah.
And kind of talk shit about everybody who kind of did that for you in a way. I mean, I don't really see much of it. It's just not like, it's not my algorithm, but I know it's out there.
I see some of it still.
Yeah. And like, man, to me, it just seems really disrespectful. And it's probably not the intention because they just don't know any better, but
it's not, they don't know any better.
But that doesn't really change the fact that it's super disrespectful.
Yeah, for sure.
God.
Well, I see it sometimes, like, say, even like today, right? It's like when I started keeping, sure, there was options, right? Like if I was 12 years old and had a great job and could go buy vision cages and Neodesha cages, like, sure, I could have done it.
Yeah.
But when I started keeping, the options were glass aquariums.
Yeah.
And I see so often today where it's like someone will have a new snake and they have it in a glass aquarium, and like the first thing is oh man, you can't do that, it's a horrible choice, which sure, maybe it is,
depends on the situation. It could be, yeah.
But they're like, oh, it's impossible, you can't do it, it's not ethical. And it's like, well, hold up, because every species I kept in a fish tank and I was able to do it.
Yeah.
Every animal I owned didn't just die because it was in a fish tank.
Right.
Like I figured out ways to do it. If I had to cover the screen lid, whatever I had to incorporate to make it work. Like, no, it's possible.
Yeah.
But it's the level of care and learning you're willing to do to make that thing work.
Right. Yeah. As you said that, I had this idea. I'm not probably going to do it, but it'd be amazing if somebody did, of like raise a baby chondro in a 10-gallon aquarium.
Oh, trust me. I think about it all the time with short tails because I understand why people say no, but like I know I can do it. Yeah. So I've often thought about like, I'm going to raise an animal up in a glass aquarium. Like, yeah. I know I can do it. It's possible. I promise you, like, you can do it.
Yeah.
We did it for years. Like it happened.
Yeah. And that's like, I don't participate in internet drama. I mean,
me neither.
As people like us would tend to. I don't have the time if I even wanted to, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, if there's anything I feel the need to speak on, I have platforms that I can do that on, and I just do that. People can either comment or not, and then that's just the thing in the past. But like, I guess I understand why it can get so dogmatic at times, because if you were to go into a comment section and do some sort of iteration of what we just said over the last few minutes, that would be wildly confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, I can do that, but I can't, but I can, but you can, but I can't. What's going on? Like, it's hard to kind of communicate that. But then at the same time, there's so much that's lost in the hobby because people are like, you can't do that. and everyone's like, oh, okay, you can't do that, and they never think about it again. Where there could be the next like big advancement in husbandry in like whatever that was, maybe not the exact application that didn't go well, but like the having such a closed mind, just like it really screws you over in such a monumental way.
There's one that always kind of makes me laugh, and I think it's a result of people parroting information, but not really having all the information. So I'll see in groups a lot where people go, "Oh, glass is a horrible holder of humidity." I go, "A fish tank that's designed to hold water. You're telling me glass can't hold humidity?" Well, no, the problem is your screen top, and the amount of ventilation. The glass is doing its job. Like, I promise you. Like, the glass is not the problem there. But they've read so often, like, oh, you can't regulate temperatures and humidity in a glass aquarium.
Yeah.
Sure, the glass is not the problem. But people, like, jump on that because they don't have all the information. They haven't educated themselves. But they're parroting something they've read, but they don't really understand it, you know? And that's a really, like, simple thing.
I mean, if you think about it, just at the basis of it, if glass was so terrible at maintaining heat, why are we building all of these houses out of so much glass?
Or look at greenhouses. Look at
like wait a second,
right? I mean, they're great conductors of heat.
Yeah,
like it's
kind of what they do.
Yeah, it's silly, right? I mean, I understand the idea that temperature can be lost through glass really easily as well.
Sure. I mean, it's not PVC or wood or something like that.
But then that goes into your cage design. What are you putting in your cage to retain that heat? Like your hides? Are you adding slate, rocks? What kind of bedding? Like there's so much that goes into that outside of just the glass. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, it's yeah, and I mean, there's just so much that, you know, we could go down the rabbit hole of all the different discussions that just get to such an extraordinary like point where you're just like getting a headache, like, oh my gosh, like
it's exhausting.
both sides have such poor arguments.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that's why I kind of always go back to this idea of like mentorship being so important. Find that person like you really enjoy. Fucking bug them. Like, bug them till you get what you want. Like, ask every fucking question you can think of, man. Like, find someone that you truly believe in and that they exemplify the things you're looking for, whether it's how they maintain their collection. Maybe you heard them on a podcast and you love the way they keep. Bug that person. Make them interested in you and follow what they say. Don't go find 3, 4, 5 mentors. Like, you don't need to watch every YouTube video. Find someone you trust and you believe in, and model yourself after them. And with that, you can disagree with them, but follow what they do first and then find out what works for you. You add too many people into the mix, you're going to mess up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest problems with the social media era is just, and you know, it happens sometimes with me, and like my knee jerk is to get frustrated, but then I'm like, well, I kind of understand where like somebody will come to me with a question about scrub pythons, something I've dealt with many times, and I'm like, well, you know, as of now, this is how I feel about this subject, and maybe they don't like the answer or whatever it may be. And then like half an hour later, I'll see a group post that person made of the same question, and they're fielding answers from like 10 different people in the comments. I'm like, why did you ask me in the first place?
Oh yeah, no, I've been, trust me, I've been there. I've been in that position. So like, what'd you ask me for? You don't believe me?
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, like just because you didn't like an answer doesn't mean it's the wrong answer. And I'm not saying I'm right about everything, but if you wanted to source it from the crowd, why didn't you just do that? If you came to me specifically, and you know, and like, it's not that big of a deal ultimately. But imagine how confused you're going to get, because
you gotta limit it.
Because like you came to me with this question, I gave you my answer, like this is what I do, and then you go on to Facebook and you get like 5 different answers that are like so different than what I said, and my answer might not be the correct one, but you're now probably more confused than you were before you asked the question, because you got all this coming in from every which direction, and then, you know, obviously everyone's going to be very stern in their opinion, like, no, I'm right. So with all the certainty as well, it's like head starts spinning.
Well, it goes back to something we touched on earlier, where like this idea of like collective knowledge and learning as much as you can. And it's not so much that it's like a reptile thing. It's a change in society where we see like this idea of like self-importance. And then also like going back to what we're talking about currently, when you want to source as many options as you can, like you ask one person, then you go to that Facebook group. Well, it's a societal thing too, is that we have so many options, right? You're not satisfied with one thing. You want the multitude of it. You want to get it from everywhere. And it's not specific to reptiles, right? It's where we've gone societally. Yeah. And it goes back to the books, like go back, learn some stuff, like make that your focus, make education your focus, pick a person to follow, pick a person to have as a mentor. We complicate things with variety and wanting always to be new, always wanting to be seen, always wanting to add. And it's like the basics work. They always work. They're the basics because it's everything's been built upon them. Yeah. Go back to the basics and like you'll be successful.
Yeah. I mean, you know, look at so many of these breeders who have been successful for decades upon decades. They're not changing what they're doing.
And people shit on them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, not like they're just like stuck in the 80s or whatever, but like
within reason sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you know, keep evolving as maybe, you know, products evolve, as caging evolves, but like the principles are the same as the principles that worked in the past. Something didn't work, you change it, okay. But everything that's worked, a lot of them feel no need to change it, and why would you? Yeah. So this old school stuff can't be so bad if we have all of these thousands of species that are multi-generational captive bred at this point, and like all the different morphs and this and that, like something went right to get us here.
Yeah. You know? Well, it's kind of funny, and I'm sorry if we're like just all over the place and rambling.
No matter.
But I was talking to a friend the other day where it was kind of like this idea that boas can't take large meals, right? I said, no, they can.
That's a ridiculous idea.
Yeah, they're designed to take large meals. You can feed boas frequently. Yeah. You can keep boas cool, right? But if you don't have a foundation, and then you don't know how to differentiate those things, and then now you keep your boa like pretty cool, you know, compared to the standards. Back in the day, we had 90-degree hotspots. Yeah. You take away that 90-degree hotspot, and you're feeding large and frequent meals, you're gonna have a problem. Like that's going to happen to you. But if you keep that hotspot cooler, you feed infrequently, maybe you feed smaller meals, you're not going to run into the same problems. Yeah. But if you don't know the variables and how they work with each other, and you just say, well, people do this, do that, but you don't know how those three things work with each other or independently, you're going to run into problems. It's going to happen. Boas can eat large meals. They can eat frequently. They can have a cool hotspot. Don't feed a boa big meals frequently if you're not providing an adequate hotspot. Like, you're going to run into a problem. Yeah. And that's with a lot of snake species. Like, just the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like the boa topic in particular, like, can boas, like boa can handle a big meal? No, an unhealthy boa can't handle a big meal.
Exactly.
Like there's qualifiers here to a lot of these things. You know, like with emeralds in particular, I feel like these days it's a little better understood with people like Chris Rice being so vocal publicly, but you know, especially with the wild caughts, it's like, oh, you know, you got to feed them small meals and like they're going to regurge on you or whatever. It's like a healthy emerald can take a meal that looks like it's going to pop it and it'll digest it if it's healthy. Like it's, you know, you almost should test your snakes, like see what they're capable of. And, you know, I feel like, especially a few years ago, you dropped that in the comment section, you're probably going to get crucified. Yeah. You know, meanwhile, you were correct the whole time. But look, I don't know, and it's probably not. It's not a reptile hobby thing. It's a people thing in general. But
Yeah.
you know, nuance isn't fun. Nuance doesn't get clicks. Nuance doesn't get attention. But that's where all the real truth is in the nuance, is in the little minutia that
And
isn't quite so fun. But
you have to fail.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you have to fail. Like you have to mess up. You got to make a mistake, and it's going to happen. If you think you're above that, you're already too far gone, man. Like you're gonna make mistakes. Animals might roll on you. Animals might get sick, but like the more problems you deal with, the better keeper you're gonna be at the end of the day.
100%.
And you have to be willing to make mistakes, and you have to be willing to try different things, and you have to be willing to trust your gut. Like the easiest, I said this the other day, the one thing in this hobby that is the easiest thing, but also the hardest thing, it's truly watching your animals and understanding them.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's not easy is because you're making it too hard. Like you have to pay attention to your animals. That's going to tell you everything. You don't need to read a million care sheets or ask a million people questions. Watch your animals. Be willing to make a mistake. Be flexible and understand how to correct it.
Yeah.
You'll learn a lot more that way.
No, absolutely. And you know, I guess you can understand as somebody who might be new of like, all right, well, I don't even know what I'm looking for. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. No, absolutely. It's gonna come over time. But you know, you notice, oh, when it's hot, the snake goes here. When it's dry, the snake does this. You know, I feel like the whole like, well, read your animals might sound a little more daunting than it is. You know, over time you pick up on like real minutia, but that only comes with years. I mean, like you said,
It takes a while.
Those cumulative snake hours, you know, those hundreds of thousands of hours. It takes time, but like the very basics of it, you know, really is not the most challenging thing in the entire world. But like, yeah, if you field opinions and whatnot from this place, that place, the other, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be real challenging to trust what you see. Like, all right, this is my observation. This is what this seems like to me. But I have these 15 people who all told me these different things. What do I do? You know,
but again, right? Like, it's like the basics are real easy. If me and you were to sit here and break down every species, temperature-wise, right? How much of a differential is there between every species of python at the temperature you would keep them at? How much does that humidity vary? There's a range there, right? It's not like you're locked into this and then the next thing is like way over here. There's a comfortable range that most of these species can live within.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I was talking about this with Patrick last week. Like, probably like 80 to 90% of snakes can all be kept at similar parameters within reason. Maybe not have the greatest amount of reproductive success possible, but like 76 to like 78 degrees, moderate humidity, maybe differences in bedding depending on what it is, but not even necessarily all the time. And, you know, reasonable diet, like that's how you keep a snake, man.
You tweak from there.
Yeah.
I mean, VPI kept a facility, you know, for the most part, you know, in my readings, it's, you know, there's not a lot of the offer of external heat and it's ambient, and they kept primarily between 78 and 82.
Yeah.
And think about the success range they had, you know, there's like these very basic parameters if you educate yourself where like none of this is extremely hard.
No.
You know, it's relatively simple.
Yeah. And then, you know, I guess when you get into that topic, having a room that you control at an ambient temperature might not be the easiest for some people in their situations. You know, I'm fortunate where I can do that and I fully do. But then, you know, there's like the outliers, like my montane rattlesnakes. Like you could never keep those animals successfully at ambient. They just, I mean, they're dynamic, like their climate range is like 35 to 110. You know, you're just, it's not happening. Or like diamond pythons, Boland's pythons, the the Malagasy boas. But you can name exceptions, but if you went to list off everything that's in the other category, this would be a week-long podcast of just trying to name species.
And they're not commonly kept species either, right? It's like the bulk of what we keep fits pretty neatly.
For sure.
And it's why they're common species, because we've been able to do it and replicate it.
I mean, almost every single colubrid, like that right there, is 4 figures of species that all can fit into pretty much the same parameters. Not all of them, but almost all of them.
The bulk of them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of overlap there with pythons and boas. Where, I mean, just to my left here, I have Pituophis, and I have scrub pythons and spilotes and beauty snakes. Like, I'm pretty much
my beauty snakes are with my pythons.
Yeah, like I'm keeping them the same exact way, and they're all doing fantastic. So these are some of the pythons and colubrids are younger animals. Some of the colubrids are adults, and so they don't need some crazy specifications for breeding yet, but like they'll get there when it's time.
Yeah, and breeding does add another variable to it, but that's when you start tweaking. Like get the basics down. You shouldn't be breeding if you don't have the basics down. So I mean, that's when you start tweaking.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no doubt about it. I definitely suffered from that in the past, of trying to do too much too quickly, and then you end up getting knocked back a few pegs and rebuild. And like this last year, I made a pretty strong effort to try to really specialize more than I already had been. Move on some smaller side projects that I like but weren't a top priority. And not even 1 year in it, the results are already wow, why didn't I do this sooner? I'm and I know I could go even further down this path and reap the benefits more and more. And then that's also a great place to then build from in the future as well. Just because you break it down doesn't mean you can't do it again later. No one's stopping you from doing anything. So
100%. I was just looking down at the comments. I usually don't have my phone active when I'm doing anything like this, but I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, all good. Yeah. Well, I definitely want to do some more blood and short tail talk. Kind of.
Yeah, man.
We gotta find out.
All right, I'll yap forever.
No, dude, I'm really happy with that tangent, but I want to pull up your Instagram and kind of go through some stuff, and really just at kind of a more basic level go over the species, because I know within the bloods there's a lot of different morphs. Borneo's, it works a little differently. Sumatran's probably the most kind of concise of the three.
Pretty basic there.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with bloods. Talking about just wild types, morphs, etc. Just let me know where I should start, and I'll kind of follow your lead.
I mean, I think right there you have a pretty decent little variety just right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think anything if you wanted to pick on and expand on, we could probably just start there, honestly.
Sure. Is this just this is the locality where?
Yeah, so this is a locality. This is Banka Island. This animal in particular, and I picked up a few of them. This was an import from Dan Malari. So DM Exotics, yeah.
Cool.
And the reason I kind of went with this is we do see Bankas offered kind of regularly, but you don't typically see a point of provenance for them.
Okay.
So it's a lot of people just saying, oh, this is a Banka Island, or so on and so forth. But really, in our hobby, there's only really 2 established lines, and that's the lines that Kara and Ryan Norris work with, and Fascination Herp, which is still around. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
Those are the really only 2 established lines. So the reason I kind of purchased these from Dan was that I could prove where they came from. So that was a big gap for me. And some people say as an island species, they stay smaller. A lot of people will refer to they have this amazing coloration, and you see the pinks and stuff, but they're just as variable as the mainland animals as well. They're not unique because they're from Banka by any means.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's more just unique, traceable bloodline, which is why it's special.
And I think this is a great starting point, and maybe I'll make some great animals from it, but they're not specifically unique because they're from the island. Like those could turn out to be ugly snakes. I doubt it, but it could happen, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Are there any other kind of wild type animals you think would be a good place to start with?
You're probably not going to find a ton of wild type stuff, but if you just keep scrolling down, I will see stuff. All right, so go back up again, and then the animal, I guess the easiest way to describe it is the brownish animal next to the albino. Left. Yep, there you go.
Gotcha.
So for all, you know, that's a Borneo shorttail.
Yeah.
But what it really is, it's a Sarawak. So that's a locality within Borneo's, where I don't think it hasn't been proven. I can say that. But we do tend to keep these separately. This is a pretty unique animal in the hobby for sure. And I have a little bit of history on them if you want me to go into that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So these animals are from the island of Borneo. They're specifically from an area called Sarawak, which, if you're looking at a map, it's northwest. I believe the animals were found in the Central Highlands. But very few of them had ever came into the country, which makes them pretty unique, I guess, in that aspect. Rich Crowley is probably, you know, the person that is on the forefront of that project.
Okay.
And, you know, I only have a pair of them, but they're pretty unique in the hobby. You can probably kind of see it in this picture a little bit. Like their scales look a little more pronounced and raised.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a pretty good photo where you can capture that.
Yeah.
And Dave and Tracy were the first people to get these animals. I believe they got in a group of 6 of them.
Okay.
They're imported from China, and it wasn't what they were looking for. So that project had moved to Chris Carmichael.
Okay.
At one point, you know, Chris bred him in the early 2000s, had a fire at his facility, lost some of the founding stock. Rich Crowley acquired the animals and was able to reproduce them. But they're pretty unique in the hobby, and there's not many of them.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it's a neat animal for sure. And that's why they're in my collection. It's not that I have these amazing plans for them, but it's just something unique to have.
Okay. Is there ever in your mind the intention of using it as a way of outcrossing, or more just I want to maintain what this is for the...
No, if I do breed mine, I would keep them separate from my other Borneos. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, they're unique enough where I'd want to keep them separated.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. All right. I guess maybe to round it out, can head over here.
Yeah, so with that, you know, we're looking at a Python Curtis. This is what we commonly call in the hobby a black or a blackhead, and they represent the southern race of Python Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
So they're on the west side of those that mountain chain I talked about, the Barasan Mountains. This is the southern race, which blacks and chromes are the same. Okay. Commonly, if you breed black to black, the expectation is you get black babies. Chrome to chrome, same way. But I have seen it. I've seen black babies come out of chrome pairings. I've seen chrome come out of black pairings. But they are the same southern race of Python Curtis.
Got you. Okay. And then where would I find a good example of the northern type?
I definitely have pictures of them. Just keep scrolling down. I'm not looking at my phone, so I mean, I can though. I can.
Yeah, you're good.
Definitely aid you in that.
And we will continue to scroll.
And we did see. So if you stop right there, that animal that's kind of centered right now.
Yeah.
This is the northern race, but this is an albino version of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, this is what we call caramels, and this is the T plus version of the northern race of Python Curtis.
Gotcha. Okay. So then that more orange head is just more pronounced example of what they kind of already are looking like in their.
Yeah, and you can find non-albino versions that have that head color. If you go if you go down in my pictures, I have some that are more of like the yellow variety, but so right here, yep,
gotcha.
That's a northern python Curtis, and that's more of the.
Holy crap!
We call them pumpkin heads and orange heads, but this one definitely has more of that yellow coloration.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So, do you find these being more popular, or the darker phases being more sought after generally? I mean, not that it really matters, but I'm just kind of curious.
No, I think these animals have gained traction over the last few years. Like, there's been people that want to specialize specifically in these.
Okay.
But I think if you're looking at it as a whole, the blacks and chromes are much more attractive to people.
Gotcha.
And I would say the blacks are probably even more attractive to people than the chromes are.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Did the T positive make any sort of change in that?
I mean, I don't know really, because like it has been around, like it's been around a long time.
Okay.
It's not like by any means a new species. I mean, a new morph.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's been around since the early 2000s, so it's not new.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the first Curtis, I like I said earlier, I write down, sometimes some talking points or whatever, and without like really digging into like anything I've written down, I want to say Curtis were late 90s. It's specifically with the orange heads. I think the chromes and blackheads came in the early 90s, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha.
So all this stuff's been around for a decent amount of time. Yeah, they're not new to the hobby.
Okay. Have the T positives been taken into the southern form?
Not to my knowledge. I'm sure there's people that will cross.
Good. Let's keep it that way.
I've never seen it, so I mean, I would say no.
Okay, cool. Well, if anyone's thinking about it, don't.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, let's keep it that way. All right. So then I guess to go into blood morphs a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me know where a good place to start is, because like I was telling you beforehand, like I have some knowledge of it, but it kind of ends around 2017 or so.
So kind of right where you are is a good starting point as any.
Okay.
So the animal between the black and gray animal and the brown animal, the albino up top. So that's a nice example, but that's an example of a T plus albino in Bronger's eye.
Okay.
Yep. And this was this animal in particular is from Cara Norris at the Blood Cell.
Okay.
And this was from her crush line of albinos, and it was an outcross, I believe. If I remember correctly, it might have came when she put this animal to a golden eye from Nick.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a nice albino animal.
Okay. And then down here, what are we looking at over here?
Yeah, those other three pictures are bloods. This is from Cara as well, and this is from her Motter animals. So Kevin Motter, his line of animals.
Okay. And so this is just a selectively bred red blood?
Exactly. Okay. And that picture's a little overexposed. But yeah, that would be a nice example of a Motter animal. So a normal blood, but line bred.
Cool. All right. And then
so this would be a slack line. And this is direct from VPI. So a slack line it's a stripe trait. And the reason it's kind of unique in our hobby is that it can function three ways. So this would be what they would consider like a level 3, or what some people just call a slack line. But there's two other levels to the way these animals present, and that's level 1 and level 2. So with level 1 slackline animals, you tend to see a lot more banding in their pattern.
Okay.
In level 2, you start seeing stripes, but in level 3, you're kind of almost seeing like a super stripe pattern. Like none of that, the belly colorations is reaching up into the sides. Okay. You have a nice open side. They're almost kind of like super stripe animals in a way.
Okay. So is it essentially like a polygenic kind of trait?
So that's kind of like, I don't know if I fully buy in to the idea that these animals work in 3 ways, because there's nothing in the hobby and there's nothing unique to blood pythons where that really makes sense. Mm-hmm. It is a genetic trait and it produces, consistently, but I think there's something to be said about the polygenics in that trait.
Okay.
And why we kind of see it in varying degrees.
Yeah, because I almost feel like, to me, the first thing I think of is kind of like tiger carpets.
Yeah.
Where you get quite the variety and appearance based on how strong the genes are on either side of the pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So then going over here.
So this animal does have some red coloration, orange coloration. But this animal is actually a pairing. This is a het T+, but from the yellow lineage.
Okay.
And typically you'll see with the T+ yellow line or even the T- lavender line, a lot of those animals will be the yellow phase of Brongersmai. So this animal just has some like interesting coloration, but for all intents and purposes, it's a normal Brongersmai. Just happens for albino.
Okay. A very non-normal looking normal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Just forgetting I'm on a podcast, just scrolling through here looking at this.
You're good, man. Yeah, anytime you want to ask a question about an animal, I'm happy to.
Yeah, so the whole like GoldenEye complex, I knew it all back in the day and I've totally forgotten it by now. So I'd like to go over that. Where should I start as far as getting?
So we have 2 GoldenEyes in that picture. Well, an animal that's in the GoldenEye complex, and then we have a GoldenEye. So the top right, we're looking at a GoldenEye in that picture.
Okay. So this is an incomplete dominant trait?
So GoldenEye is incomplete dominant, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
So what's the origin of this morph? Because I mean that is just so insanely different.
So again, GoldenEyes have been in the hobby for a considerable amount of time. I believe the first animal came in around early 2000s, like 01, 02.
Okay.
And when so the first animal, if I remember correctly, wasn't an import. It was an animal that Dave and Tracy had bought off the classifieds. And then they were able to procure another animal a few years later. And when these animals first came in, they didn't call them GoldenEyes. They called them either carmine or large blotched pythons. But once the trait was inheritable, they had the second animal they called GoldenEye, the animal that they imported. But when they realized that they both had the same super, so the magpie, it's the same animal. And then in the hobby, like you'll see animals even to this day that are more representative of what VPI was calling carmines, just based off the pattern. But it's the same gene. It's been in the hobby for a long time. Okay. And this animal particularly is from Nick Bettini's dark line. So, maybe it's not a great picture, but this animal is, kind of darker in appearance, but it's not muddied. It kind of has these like purplish silver tones. It's a lot darker than what you would see in like a really nice GoldenEye.
Okay. Okay. So then moving down here, the Super Stripe 007. So we're definitely pushing it a couple of steps further, but remind me with the 007, what that comes.
So that's the introduction of the Matrix gene.
Okay.
With Matrix being another incomplete dominant because the Super is ivory.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
I'm back.
So this is a Super Stripe, and then GoldenEye and Matrix combined. And the striping pattern you're really looking at is that pattern kind of along the side. And then Super Stripes tend to have, you can't see in this picture obviously, but the striping actually kind of continues down their lateral scales down the belly as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Very
Ventral
cool.
scales, sorry.
All right. Interesting. So then let's see where to go next as far
and
as
ivory is kind of a cool one too in itself for the matrix gene, because the first animals that came in, they weren't matrix, they came in ivory. And VPI,
really?
Yeah, VPI imported 2 of those animals, one in 98 and one in 2000. They didn't produce matrix till 03.
Okay, because the matrix is not a super visually extreme gene, right?
No, it can be a little hard to identify.
It's almost kind of like a yellow belly.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
Okay. I mean, obviously, with the ivory, but like just as far as how the gene works.
Mm-hmm.
So then genetics.
And there's some telltale traits like matrix. I hate saying it is 100% because it's not. And I have animals that I know come from ivory pairings that don't have pink tongues, but they're not the typical black. They might be a little purplish in color. But matrix will tend to have pink tongues. They'll have pixelated side patterns. You can pick them out a lot of the times, but it's not 100%.
Gotcha. All right. Do you think you have a good example of that on here just to kind of see the
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I'm kind of scrolling through my phone as well.
Okay.
So I can see how far you want to scroll down there.
Because I'm back in 2014.
Yeah, I probably don't have like a million pictures of matrix.
2024. I'm crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to April of 2024.
Where am I at now? April. Okay.
So we're there. It's April 15th. Okay, so that animal in the middle. Yep. So this is a matrix.
Okay.
So if you kind of look at that side pattern, this one isn't the greatest example of it, but you can kind of see like how each scale has its own coloration, like it's not mixed in the middle of the scale.
Okay. Yeah,
and then especially this is pretty common in matrix too, along that neck pattern where you start seeing like this kind of speckling behind the head and along the neck. You see that a lot in matrix.
Okay. Yeah, because untrained eye looking at this, I'm like, I don't know.
Pretty normal looking.
When the first thing that stood out was that pixelation on the neck. I'm like, okay, that's a little different. But...
Yeah. And you start seeing that on the side where like the colors look more granular because it's kind of like isolated to each scale versus like a scale having like multiple pigmentation on it.
Gotcha. Okay. And then is there an ivory in the...
Yeah, and I don't have like the best example of an ivory as what you would consider normal. But if you go up to like say May 23rd of 2024.
Okay. It's May.
Yep.
T positive ivory. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the ivory gene, and this animal in particular doesn't look necessarily like most ivories that are on the market because this animal has the sunder gene, which in combos it will tend to lead towards that striping that you see.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be a super matrix.
Okay. So then how does batik then fall into the equation?
So there's a batik animal in that picture in the middle. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is a level 2 slackline batik. So that's where you see this like that pattern is really condensed into a stripe. But this would be batik.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's also in complete dominant?
Yeah, because there's a super, but the super tends to have kinking in the tail.
Okay.
And they haven't been known. There are adults out there, but they tend to not do very well.
So I guess you could draw a close comparison with zebra.
Yep.
Jungle.
And it's very similar to a zebra pattern as well.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then, so the batik lends itself very well to the golden eye complex, correct?
Yeah, and that's when you start seeing pixels, which I don't own a pixel, so it's not on my page. But
got you.
Yeah, it's a great combo, if not one of the best combos.
Okay. Cool. And then for bloods, are there any morphs that we've missed that we would see here on your page?
So we covered Goldeneye, we covered Ivory, we covered Batik, we covered Matrix. Outside of like stripes and super stripes, not so much.
Okay.
I have het pied animals, but I don't have pied visuals.
Okay.
This animal off to the right there, the kind of like yellowish orange animal. So this is also a T+ albino, but this is from the yellow lineage.
That's hot.
Yeah, it's a cool snake, and it's even cool looking now.
Are there more purple tones present in person on that animal?
Yeah, especially back on that like the tail area.
Yeah. Seeing that there, I just seeing that, I'm like, oh, I bet in person that purple is like 5 times more pronounced.
For sure.
Wow, that animal's insane. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a lineage of T+, and Nick never got the chance to talk about it, and I don't think VPI ever really discussed it publicly, and it's probably that it wasn't known to them. It is compatible with the other T+ animals. You can breed a T+ yellow to a T+ red and get yellow animals. And the way VPI, kind of digging through their notes and also just kind of being around for a while, that's how these first animals were produced as well. It was T+ red to just yellow Bronger's Mai. And that's where they got the T+ yellow lineage for the albinos.
All right. Interesting. Very cool. All right. So then, do you think we're ready to move on to Borneos, or is there anything on bloods you think we should still touch on to button it up?
I mean, outside of like stripes and super stripes and, the lineages.
We've caught those kind of in the process of getting here.
Yeah. So there's a Borneo down in that bottom left-hand side. And that was produced from Nick. That's a granite stripe fade.
Okay.
And fade's part of like the latte complex.
So this is where I don't think I have any knowledge. I remember back in the day listening to, I think, one particular episode that Matt Minatola did on NPR talking about.
Yeah, and Matt's going to be the expert on that. And he works with more of the marble stuff.
Yeah,
I
just
believe
talk about Borneo morphs. I'm like, my brain hurts. I think I listened to the episode like 3 times, and I'm like, I still have no fucking clue what's going on.
And that's for everybody. They're more polygenic traits than genetically inheritable. And I believe Nick's lineage came from Keith Brady. I have it written down somewhere, but so fade is part of a complex, and I would be bullshitting if I just decided to start trying to break it down for you.
Sure.
But this animal has granite, stripe, and fade in it.
Okay. Cool. So should I start scrolling back up or then go a little further down?
Well, so we have another orange head here too. If you scroll up just a little bit, the animal on the right underneath that yellow albino.
Yeah.
So that's another orange head.
Crazy.
And then when you exit out of that, the bottom left underneath that picture, that's another orange head as well.
Yeah. Wow. The sides on that one are ridiculous, man.
Yeah, and she's kept them too. She has a ton of yellow in her. And if you look, there's a lot of striping in that pattern as well.
Yeah.
I don't think striping it in the Curtis is a genetic trait, but I think it can definitely be like compounded on. It's polygenic.
Makes sense. Dang. Yeah, that surprising to hear that they're less popular than, I guess, like, the darker Curtis. It makes sense if people like them, but that to me is that's insane right there.
Curtis as a whole are my favorite, and orange heads are probably up there for me.
Really?
Yeah, and they don't represent the bulk of my collection, but I would say orange heads are probably my favorite in the complex.
What is it about the species that puts them at the top for you?
I just love that contrast. The orange head against the blacks of the body. They tend to stay smaller. They're just rock solid, and like they tend to be just good right out of the gate as far as personality. They're just very gentle, like captive animals for the most part. There's always exceptions, but
sure.
I would say if you were going to get into the complex, like Curtis is like the best starting point.
Okay.
And their care is all the same, but they just tend to be just rock solid, like calm demeanor.
All right. That's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah, tend to stay a little smaller.
Right. Okay. I've heard that before too. Makes sense. Yeah. Because I mean, while they're not necessarily the longest snakes, they're freaking heavy. So,
and a large short tail is an intimidating animal.
Oh, for sure.
The bite's not bad. They have small teeth, but they're powerful. They're fast, and you don't have a lot of animal to work with.
Right.
They're not like an animal that when you have a larger constrictor, like if you're even scrubs with you, right? You have something there to work with.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you can have the head of that animal 6 feet away from you at any point in time.
Yeah. You don't have that option with them.
No.
they're right there on top of you,
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool.
And that's a Borneo down there too in the middle, the black with like the yellow stripe.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And this was actually bred by Bill Stiegel.
Hey. Shout out to Bill Stiegel.
Yeah, and this is a line of animals that Kara Norris from the Blood Cell originally worked with and imported. This is called Sideswipe.
Okay.
Which is, more or less it's a striping pattern, and it tends those sides on a really nice side swipe. That pattern wouldn't be like broken up, kind of like in the middle, like the pattern that's coming from the belly to the middle of the body there.
Yeah, I get
that. Would be like wide open and kind of striping itself.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that animal is gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, the animal's bill has, if they weren't produced from Kara, they're the grandchildren of Kara's animals, if I remember correctly.
Got it. Very cool. All right. So now 2 more Borneos, up or down, or
more. Oh, so we have another Sarawak there in the middle.
Okay.
Yep. So same kind of deal we talked about. It's unique. Yeah. It should be kept separate.
Yeah, very, very different. I mean, that animal is so cool.
And we do the same thing in the hobby with the northern and southern race of Curtis.
Okay.
Stephen Tillis had done a study to look at like kind of the divergence, the genetic makeup there. And he didn't find much of a difference between the northern and southern race, but as a hobby, we tend to keep them separate.
Yeah.
We don't mix them.
I like it. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, especially with how different they are. And also, if you think about it, you take like a black-faced southern type and a really nice high-colored northern type, the babies are not going to look that good.
No, not. Definitely not in that first generation. They're probably gonna be really muddy animals.
Yeah, it's like you take the best parts of both of them and cancel each other out for just the sake of doing it. Like what?
Doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's funny.
And then even within this, like the clad, or if you want to call it a clade or a complex with the short tails, it's kind of unique. So Curtis, and I think this was a study that was done by Shine and Baker, is so the divergence between Curtis and your Borneos, your Brights, they only really differ about 3%.
Okay.
And Bronger's Mai to the Borneos to Curtis, they differ about 8.9%. 9%, we'll call it.
That's kind of a lot.
It is a lot, especially if you consider that blood pythons to like Malayo python or reticulatus, whatever, there's only about a 10.3% divergence.
Yeah.
So bloods are about as much different as Curtis and Borneos as they are from reticulated pythons, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Wow. Which is because they both exist on Sumatra?
Yeah, and they're all from this greater area. Well, so that would actually be the opposite, is because on Sumatra, you just have the bloods and the Curtis.
Yeah.
You don't have Borneos there.
Right.
But I think that probably plays into the fact if you look at that area as the greatest, what do they call it, like SUNDOWN? So through, the Paleocene epoch, when there was the Ice Age and the land bridge opened in that whole area for, Australia to New Guinea and to Malaysian Peninsula and all that stuff. And then the mountain range between them, where I think there probably would have been an opening probably for Curtis and Borneo to be closer to each other.
Okay.
But I don't know, dude. I'm not a scientist.
Well, me either. So I'm just like,
yeah,
okay,
I'm no Nick
right.
Munn.
Yeah.
I can't geek out the way he does about it, but
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, I'm shocked that they're that divergent.
Yeah. And that, that's a paper I read. I didn't do the study. I have no clue.
And so is this the chrome phase then?
Yeah, this would be a Chrome Curtis. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that was produced from Trace Harden.
Cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right.
Yeah, chromes are awesome.
And is this that animal we took a look at earlier?
Yeah, yep. That's that granite stripe fade again.
Okay. Nice. Yep.
And then you can kind of see, so that picture above it is a pretty good example of like looking at a difference between like, a golden eye and a 007. So that's a genetic stripe golden eye next to a super stripe 007.
Okay.
So, it has that kind of additional stripe trait plus matrix in there. And matrix really really reduces the pattern of golden eye further.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then, and magpie would be kind of the ultimate reduction of that pattern.
Yeah. Okay. Man, those animals are just beautiful. My gosh.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we have another golden eye in there too, between the two Borneos.
It's a lot of pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a Sunder golden eye. Okay. And this gene has existed and it's been in other people's collections. But Nick was really the first to dial it in and kind of perfect it. So I do attribute this gene to Nick a lot.
Okay.
And with GoldenEye, Sunder just really breaks up that pattern. And then you can see a lot of red kind of coming in on that dorsal. It also will work as a color enhancer.
Okay.
But a lot of times when Sunder is introduced to the other morphs, say like Batik or Matrix, or even other combos, it tends to lean towards striping along that dorsal pattern.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, that's a wild looking snake. My gosh.
Yeah, and she looks even cooler now, man, because some of these pictures are old. So
yeah, we're a few years back at this point.
Yeah,
we're 2.5 years ago. Yeah, I mean, and your pictures are also great as well. I gotta give it to you.
Thank
you. The natural lighting on all.
I try to take all my pictures outdoors.
Yeah,
I think it just really shows. And I don't edit my photos. Maybe sometimes I'll dial back
did it for you on a couple of these, and I know that because it's been doing that to me recently.
Yeah.
The last week, Instagram has just been, if I post a photo, which I haven't, it just makes it so dark, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, sometimes I'll increase the brightness or dial back the saturation or exposure, but I don't do anything with my photos. It's however I shot them and how they appeared on my phone.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'll try to dial them back to make them look realistic, but it doesn't work every time because even posting to Instagram or Facebook, they change the colors themselves as well. So.
Yeah, it's insane. So is this that animal we were just taking a look at?
This is probably shortly after I got it because it looks pretty small in that picture.
Yeah. And then we're looking at here. That's
a Sarawak again. Yep.
All right.
And then if you actually go back down to where you were, so this animal in the top middle there.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a T plus albino, but that's with the addition of the VPI hypogene. So we call these sunglows.
Wow.
And she's really red now, but it's like, I always kind of compare them, especially the old pictures that VPI had. They're like this strawberry, lemonade color. So a sunglow is super stripe hypo albino is kind of how they're always labeled. But I don't think you really need that super stripe gene for sure. Because this, to me, isn't a super stripe, but it is a sunglow. Okay.
Did she maintain that kind of lavender tail?
Yeah, she still has that. Yeah, it's still cool. Purple on the back end.
That's
pretty common just with T plus albinos in general.
Oh, okay.
You'll kind of start seeing some of those lavender colors pop up.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we could keep doing this portion of it for so long. Oh, there's a bunch of comments that I missed as well. Hey, comment section. You were covered by a Chrome page for a bit.
I have a question for you.
All right.
Can I run to use the bathroom real quick?
Oh yeah, dude, go for it, Mike. Yeah,
right on.
Yeah,
I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
No worries, dude. I'm sorry. Well, yeah. Hopefully, you guys were as mesmerized by those snakes as I was going through that page. Yeah, and sorry for missing the chat for so long. Oh man. But yeah, I guess in the meantime, if you guys are enjoying this episode, I don't usually say this, but yeah, throw a like on the video, throw a comment in the main comment feed. Would be most appreciated. So, but yeah, we'll get to some of these once Shawn gets back. But yeah, what an episode, man! This has been awesome. I always love talking about something that I am not necessarily involved in, but have kind of been observing from just a distance. And getting somebody on who's as passionate about these animals as I am about what I'm doing, it's always super cool. Really kind of reinvigorates a lot of the passion for this. Might not necessarily result in me getting some short tails tomorrow, but just bouncing ideas is always so fun. So, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No worries. But
I've been in jury duty all day, dude. Like.
Yeah,
no real access to going to the bathroom, and then came right to this.
Oof. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I promise I won't keep you here forever.
Oh, you're good, dude.
But good question here. So Jessica says she'd love for you to elaborate on the blood hypo, and I feel the same way because I think this is the first time I've actually heard of hypo in blood pythons. Is this?
Yeah, I kind of wish I could elaborate on it more.
Okay.
So historically, hypo is a VPI trait. And it's linked exclusively to their stripe lineage. Well, not exclusively, because actually hypo does appear in slackline as well.
Okay.
But historically, those two genes have, let's just say a stripe gene has been always linked with hypo.
Okay.
And hypo is kind of weird because, so you could have a hypo animal and not produce any hypos. But there's no super form, right? So you'd expect to see hypos.
Yeah.
It doesn't pop up all the time. It kind of seems like it pops up like indiscriminately within the stripe line. Same with slack line. So some people will say that it's not a true hypo gene, that it's, I guess you'd say maybe polymorphic at that point, where maybe some of these animals have a hypo-ish appearance and appear lighter. It's not consistent. Like it's not consistent. So, I think Elijah's probably touched on it where he doesn't really believe it's a true hypo.
Okay.
And there's maybe other genes we're looking at that maybe have been named differently that are more of a true hypo. But yeah, it's not consistent. And if you were to go onto the Blood Python Facebook group, right, which might be one of the greatest resources of information, no one's really going to give you a solid answer on hypo. And I don't have one, I don't have one either.
How recently has it been a thing in the blood world?
Say that again?
Like how recently is hypo kind of become?
Oh, I don't have like a time frame, but it's been around a long time.
Okay.
The hypo gene's not new by any means. And we are starting, Rich and Nick produced Sunglow Golden Eyes right around the same time. I think Nick, this isn't me discrediting Rich by any means. I think Nick might have produced it before Rich. Rich might have been the first to post it. But they were both around the same time. So we do see Sunglow in Golden Eye. And Jessica, actually, I had the privilege of IDing that animal. I went to Nick's facility after he passed, and she does have a Sunglow Golden Eye.
Oh, wow.
And it's a beautiful animal. Great. Like they have this really nice pink blushing. The reds aren't like solid. They're almost like just like this pink vibrant color with like this wash over them. They're really nice animals. Yeah,
I'm picturing it in my head right now, and it looks pretty great in my head. I could only imagine I might not even be all the way to where.
Yeah, they're really beautiful, and it's weird, right? It's like it's not like it just pops out and gets you. It's the beauty's kind of in like the subtleness of it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really, really nice though.
Cool. Awesome. Well, so kind of as we wind down here, I want to talk about your library, your book collection. You've kind of mentioned throughout and Adam commented real early on about it, and so did Lisa. You have a passion for reptile literature. I mean, you've mentioned books throughout the episode. Has this always been something you're just fascinated by?
Yeah. Oh, I've bought, books forever, magazines, whatever. I think, it really picked up in the last like 5 years or so.
Okay.
But I have probably a couple hundred books.
Wow.
Probably the same with my collection of like Reptiles magazine, Reptiles and Amphibian, Vivarium, sorry, slurring my words there. And then, probably, 100 papers or so, somewhere around there. So, I mean, the collection's, in, a few hundreds between books, magazines, and publications. Yeah. I try to buy a book bi-weekly. So, yeah, I buy a lot of books.
Wow.
Yeah. And my Amazon cart, I probably have another 100, 200 books sitting in my cart waiting to buy. Wow. And I'm like indiscriminate with them. Like I like modern publications. I love buying like the edition Chimera books. But I also buy like, for nostalgic purposes, I buy like the little TFH books you'd buy at pet shops when you were a kid. I purchased the books TFH made in the 70s, which are like, 3-4 inches thick, 500 pages, these big coffee table books where every piece of information is probably outdated, but they're cool to have,
Okay. And then, I mean, is there any sort of real like goal there, or you're just having fun building a literature collection?
Yeah, I'm just like a collector of information, man. I just like, I like having them. Like people have asked me like, oh, you read all those? It's like, no, of course not. Like I wouldn't subject anyone to that. You know?
I kind of figured like I'm buying a new book every week or so. I'm like, unless you got nothing going on in your life, I don't know if you're reading all of them.
Maybe I've read like 25% of them. You know, I've looked through all of them for sure. Yeah. But am I opening the book and reading front to back? Like, absolutely not.
As like a reference bank of knowledge, it's like, it's like an encyclopedia made up of a bunch of different books.
Mm-hmm.
If you need,
I will say, like, when I have a question, I will tend to go look in a book first before I do anything else. Like, if I am thinking about something, I'm like, oh, I think I have a book on that, and I'll reference it. And if I want to do a deeper dive, maybe I start looking information up online, or whatever, or looking up source material. But no, I would say it's more of a weird like collecting thing. Like it's like a hobby within the hobby. Mm-hmm. I just like owning the books. I like seeing something like, oh shit, like I forgot about that one, and that's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what she asked, I'm gonna go actually check. It was Adam. He asked if you have a favorite herp book.
Yeah, for sure. You can never go wrong with the Blue Bible. Like you should have that in your collection. And then there's other books that are kind of like, I kind of put in that same, so like the Alterna book is like something I feel like if you're into colubrids and you like, you're into the gray bandits and stuff, like that's like kind of like a must have. And that book's in 2 editions. There's the gray bandit king snakes and then the Alterna book. The Alterna book's a lot harder to find.
Okay.
The complete boa constrictor from Vin Russo. That's one of those books, especially for me, because I was before Short Tails, I was really heavy into boas, and like that's something I put pretty high up there. The edition Chimera books, like the Reptiles of Cambodia, the Reptiles of Japan, hard to find, great books. Anything from VPI, the Pythons of Australia, Pythons of the great books to have. Actually, their ball python book is like I'd put that up as, if you're into pythons, it's probably one of the premier python books just to have, is the ball python book. Like it's an amazing read front to back. And that is one I've read multiple times.
Okay.
Anything from Carl Caulfield, like snakes and more snakes, snake hunting, like all that kind of stuff is like great stuff just to have.
Yeah, sure. Very cool.
That's awesome. I could, I'm looking over my shoulder right now, but like this book right here, I don't have the dust jacket on it, but like Living Snakes of the World, like that's a must-have in your collection. And you can find that book with a dust jacket for like $25, dude. Snakes of Arizona.
I have that one.
Yeah, I got multiple copies of this. This one just happens to still be in its wrapper. Yeah, I buy a lot of doubles of books too. Like the Blue Bible, I probably have 3 or 4 soft covers, 2 or 3 hard covers signed. Yeah, it's stupid.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's it's a little silly though sometimes.
I mean that they can't unplug that archive.
No, it's fun. It's a great resource, and it's I think another part of this hobby is you should actively invest in things you support and people you believe in.
Yeah.
To write a book in itself is a huge expenditure of time, and they're not becoming millionaires off of writing a book. It's probably a net zero at that point,
Probably a net loss.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things you can do is advocate for the people that are taking time to do this and support them when you can.
Yeah.
Because these people don't need to write these books. Like as much as when you're in the hobby, it seems all encompassing. We're really niche and really small.
Yeah.
So you should actively invest in the people that dedicate their time to making these publications for us,
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think that's a wonderful sentiment to kind of wrap up on here is just, we've been talking about a lot of stuff throughout the episode, but, support the people who are doing it right, do everything you can to be the most productive member of this hobby you can be, do right by the animals, always learn, always keep yourself in check. It's all simple when you lay it out, but when you're doing this for as long as, like either of us have, it can be easy to forget about some of these things from time to time. So a good reminder.
You got to remember you're not bigger than the program, like you individually are the hobby.
Yeah.
So represent it correctly and do the best you can by it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, man, thank you so much for being here tonight. This was an awesome episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it.
I'm glad. That makes me happy.
Good. Yeah, no, fantastic. So for anybody who is not already following you, or, where are the best places for people to support you online?
I'm probably the most active on Instagram. The Facebook just is secondary because it posts to it automatically. Sure. So on Instagram, just sound_serpents. And, that's where I'm the most active and where you'll see updates from me and whatnot.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Shawn, once again, man, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic episode.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who tuned in, watched, and or listened. Catch you all back here next week for a new episode.